Welcome to video 29 of Gamer to Game Developer Series 1. And in this video we'll implement an explosion that happens when objects are in the water. So this video is about setting up a whole lot of scripts while editing them so that when that object or the player is submerged or partially submerged, then their explosion effect will be different. So you remember from the last video there's something called a render queue, and currently explosions, they look like they're in front of the water even though they're happening behind. So we're just going to edit our explosion prefab, a really simple sort of edit to make it look less obvious that it's in front of the water. Okay, so let's go to our very first step, which is to set up the explosion in water prefab. Okay, so for our explosion in water prefab, all we need to do is just drag any one of our explosions into the hierarchy. So I'll just grab this explosion air block and I'll change its parameters. So I'll change the color. So red is fine at 255, green I'll set it to 255, and blue to 255 as well. And I'll change the alpha to 140. Okay, so that's the color sorted. I'll change the duration to 5. And I'll turn off a number of these. So I'll uncheck Fireball, I'll uncheck Sparks, and I'll uncheck Shockwave. Okay, and now I'll create a new prefab. So create prefab. And I'll call this one Explosion in Water. Alright. And I'll drag my edited explosion effect into it. So Explosion in Water. Alright. I can have a look at what it looks like. So if I hit the play button, I should get to see it. Alright, so that's basically it. It's just a glow effect. Simple effect. Alright. So I'll delete it now, and that is it for this step. We have our explosion in water prefab setup. So let's go to the next step. We're on to our second step, which is to set up the game settings script. Okay, let's create a new script. So create C# script, and we'll call this game settings. And then let's open it up in MonoDevelop. And well, let's start typing in a summary, and I'll type here that this script is attached to the game manager, and this script is accessed by the following scripts for the water height value. So that's what we're going to keep in here. So this script, because many scripts are now going to wonder what is the water height. So when should the explosion be a normal explosion and when should it be a underwater explosion? And to know that, all of the scripts that we're going to edit need to know the water height. So this script is accessed by the following scripts for the water height value. So WaterBehaviour, WaterEffect, ServerRemovesConstruction block, ServerRemoves air block, and RocketScript. Alright, and then we'll have variables. So as usual, variables start, and a variables end. And our variable is really simply public float water height. Okay, so that's it for this script in this video. Let's just save that and go on to the next step. We're on to our third step, which is to edit the WaterBehaviour script. Okay, let's open up the WaterBehaviour script and let's edit it. So I won't have it water height equal to 14 written there anymore. So let's just delete that little bit. And let's go down to inside the start function. After accessing the player stats script, I will access the game settings script that we just wrote. So let me write this comment here, which is access game settings to get the water height. And we'll write game settings, and I'll call it settings script, our little variable here. Settings script is equal to gmanager.getComponent, and the component, of course, is game settings. Then we'll say water height is equal to settings script dot water height. Alright, and that is it. We're done for this step. Our WaterBehaviour script now has one source for the water height. We're on to our fourth step, which is to edit the WaterEffect script. Let's open up the WaterEffect script, and it's just basically the same thing that we did for WaterBehaviour, so I'll delete that 14 there, and I will actually copy code. So I'll go over to the start function, make a little bit of space there, and just copy the code over from the WaterBehaviour script. So I'll copy all this bit, drop it in, and I'll also of course need the initial bit where we find the game manager game object. And I'll just drop that in above, save it, do a really fast check in Unity that I didn't forget anything. No, I haven't, so let's move to the next step. Okay, we're on to step 5, which is to edit the ServerRemovesConstruction block script. Okay, let's open up the ServerRemovesConstruction block script, and let's start making some changes. So first of all, in the summary, I'll write here that this script accesses the game settings script to get the value for water height. And I'll add a new explosion variable here. So I'll have here public game object water explosion, and I'll just change this comment here as well. Are attached to the explosion prefabs are attached to these. Okay, and then we'll have a new variable down here, private float water height. Okay, so that's our variables done. Now we need to, in our start function, have that bit of code. So this script doesn't have a start function, so we're going to add one to it. So void start. Okay. And we just need to access that script. So we'll copy from the WaterEffect script the code, paste it in, alright, so that's it. We've accessed that script now. So now we need to instantiate the right type of explosion depending on the height of the block when it's destroyed. So for that, we'll go down to the RPC where we instantiate the construction block explosion. So I have here find the unique block by its name and then instantiate an explosion at its location. I'll type in a new line to it that the type of explosion depends on the water height. Okay, and I will put this inside this RPC now. I'm just going to put it inside an if statement. So if go dot transform dot position, so go is the very block that's about to get removed, the one that's going to get destroyed. That's what go is, because you can see here game object go is equal to game object dot find and this block. Okay, so position dot y is greater than or equal to water height. Okay, if that's the case, then just instantiate as usual because it's up in the air. Now if that's not the case, then else we'll instantiate the water explosion. So I'll copy this, paste it in, and I'll replace explosion with water explosion. And I'll save it, and that should be it. Let's do a quick check in Unity that there are no errors popping up. Nope, they aren't, so let's go to the next step. We're on to our 6th step, which is to edit the ServerRemovesAirBlock script. Let's open up the ServerRemovesAirBlock script and repeat what we did for the construction block one. So I'll just copy the very summary comment as well and put it down here. I'll copy the variables as well. I noticed that this should be these. Alright, so just copy these 2 variables. Okay, so that's the variables. Next we add in that start function as well. So just copy that. Okay, so that's our start function in. Now let's go ahead and in the same RPC do exactly what we did for the construction block version of this script. So the type of explosion depends on yes, etc, etc. And of course that now if statement to instantiate the correct type of block. Let's just copy that in. Just replace this line right here. Okay, and that's it. Save. And let me jump back to Unity, check there are no obvious errors. No, they aren't, so let's move to the next step. In step 7, we'll edit the RocketScript. Open up the RocketScript, and let's do exactly what we did previously. So I'll just copy the comment back here that this script accesses game settings blah blah script. Okay, and with that, let's copy the variables as well. It's going all the way to, I can just put it up here. And then I'll copy the start function code as well. So I'll go grab that. Suppose I can put it before the coroutine portion. And then I'll scroll down into the update function. And right here where we have instantiate an explosion at the point where the rocket hits, this is where we'll put in an if statement. So if rocket hit dot point dot y is greater than or equal to water height -1, and I just put a -1 here just in case the rocket is, you know, is just under the water height. So then like if the rocket is just at the water height or just under the water height, then I'd just prefer that the explosion remains the same, a normal explosion, because it's not very deep into the water. And okay, then I'll put an else, and I'll copy this line here and call it water explosion. Done. Okay, and there'll be another one of these down below, so I'll just copy this code right here and go to the coroutine down below. So down, 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 here we go. Instantiate, yep, just replace that. There we go. I'll just move all of this with a shift tab. Okay. So yep, so that's just to destroy it after some time. And yep, looking alright. Yeah, that's right, I can't leave that rocket hit, obviously, because there's nothing, this code will have no idea what rocket hit is. It should be if my transform. So if my transform dot position dot y, so my transform here is the rocket itself, which makes sense, and if my transform dot position dot y is greater than or equal to the water height minus 1, yes, then this is exactly what I want to happen. So let's save that, and that is it for the RocketScript. Let's jump back to Unity, quickly check, no errors, no errors, so let's move to the next step. Okay, we're on to our last step, which is to edit the health and damage script, and then we'll build and run the game. Alright, let's open up the health and damage script and edit it as well. So let's expand it and add the comment. It's going over to the RocketScript. I'll just copy that comment, paste it in, and of course I'll need some new variables. So I'll go over to the RocketScript again and just copy those two new variables, water height and water explosion, and drop them in here. So down to the bottom, just put that in. Are attached to these. Okay, then let's go to the start function, and once again we'll just drop in the new portion of code. So I'll copy this, accessing the game settings script, and I'll just drop it in just after, before the if network view business. I'll drop it in here and just get the water height. Okay, now I need to go over to our destroy self function, which is down below, down, down. Let's see, it's pretty long. There we go. Yeah, alright. So this one right here. So here I need to just do a check for water height and instantiate the correct type of explosion. So I can use the code that I have in the RocketScript. That should work pretty well. I'll just change the my transform bit. So I'll copy it, drop it in, and instead of my transform, I'll just say transform. Let me just check. Yeah, I'll just put transform. It's simple as that. So transform. So if transform dot position dot y, yes, is greater than or equal to water height minus 1, then we will instantiate explosion, and the location of that would be transform dot position. So transform dot position, and it's transform dot rotation. So transform dot rotation. Okay, and I'll do the same for the water explosion. Copy that in and copy in the rotation as well. Okay, and I'll delete the original line here. Now something's just occurred to me. You know, I obviously had to change out that rocket portion of code, so I've probably forgotten to do that over in the RocketScript, and let's have a look. And yes, I have. So like here in the RocketScript where I'm instantiating the explosion, I still have rocket hit, which makes no sense. It really should say my transform dot position. So let's just do that. My transform dot position. And I'll just copy that. Get rid of this down here. Paste it in. Save. Okay, so that's fixed up. Let me just jump back to the health and damage script. Let me just go over it one more time. Make sure that it is alright. And it looks alright to me. I'll save it. There shouldn't be anything else that I need to change because we're only just instantiating the explosion depending on the player's height. So let's jump over to Unity. Let's attach that game settings script. So jump over, and we'll also need to go through each of the scripts and attach that explosion prefab, explosion in water prefab. So now for the game manager, we have our game settings script, and let's just drop it in. Okay, and there's our water height value right there. Now let's go over to the block manager, and yes, here we have it. We can see that the removes whatever script has a missing component here, the water explosion. So let's attach that. So explosion in water, drop it in. Do the same for the air block version. Okay, now we also need to do the same for the rocket as well. So let's find the rocket. That's the rocket. And it too needs a water explosion prefab. So let's drop in explosion in water. And our players as well, so the trigger game objects on both players, need this prefab as well. So explosion in water. And for the red player as well, explosion in water. And that should be all, because we edited 6 scripts and 4 of them needed this addition to it. So we have done that. Let me just mentally go over that. Yes, we have. Okay, so let's save and build and run. I'll set up a server here. Try connecting here. Hopefully it's not too stuttery. Jump in. Okay, and so what I want to test is of course the water height stuff. So let's build a block down there inside the water. Okay, good. Now I will, an easy one really would have been, let me just move this up, would have been just to fire a rocket basically. So fire it in, and there we go, there's it. Explosion in the water, and that was very shallow, so it appeared above. Let me fire deep in. Okay, so there we go. We have a simple sort of in the water explosion effect. Let me fire it at the blocks, and yeah, it looks just pretty strong because there are lots of blocks together. Okay, so the code is working. So basically, if we have anything blown up underwater, whether it be players, whether it's the rocket, whether it's blocks, they'll all have this explosion in water effect. Now the effect itself is not what's important, it's really the code. So if you have a better effect that you can create, then you can just slot it in where in each of those scripts that you just saw, that better effect. So my effect is not all that awesome. So if you can make a better one, then it's very easy. You just slot it in into these prefab slots and away you go. Alright, so that's it for this video really, and in the next video I'll just disconnect here. In the next video I'll sort out the player spawn points. So at the moment they're facing the wrong direction. I'll put those tall pillars marking each of the players' locations, and I'll also set up a bit of code so that when the player is leaving is a certain distance away from the central area of the map, then they're sent a message. They see a message on the screen that, you know, turn back, you're leaving the level boundaries, and if they continue onwards, then they'll get destroyed. So we'll implement all of that in the next video. Alright, so see you then.